Well, hello, friends. Welcome to a special episode. I did a commute talk earlier today about how my career looked like. And something that is apparently very interesting to people is how I was able to get jobs at Nokia and Apple with no degree. And many people have reached out to me and asked about that. So I thought I would just answer in the form of a video. And the best way I can answer is, I think, by showing you my resume that I was using back in those days. So this is the one I had when I was applying for the job at Apple. But basically, when I was applying for the job at Nokia, it was just like this, right? So um, I guess we can talk about this part first. So when I was applying for the job at Nokia, um, I had sort of worked my way up through these two Swedish companies. This first one here, it was a web development job that I got I was like a high school kid and I didn't want to go to school. So I just managed to find a job where I could do homepages for local businesses. It was very not glamorous, but it gave me a reason to learn PHP, SQL, and web development stuff while being paid at the same time, which was really sweet. Yeah, I was really into Adobe software at the time. And then one particular client also wanted us to integrate their web shop with some CRM system that they had, and they had some C++ APIs, and it gave me a reason to learn more about C++. So that was really awesome, and it sort of springboarded me, because this whole thing fell apart after a while, and it springboarded me into this next job, which was much more hardcore C++ programming, and it was more of I guess what I would call a full stack job, because I was writing assembly, writing C++ code, SQL, making databases, designing databases, and making web pages and reports and stuff like that. And I know I said some month numbers in the video earlier, but these are the actual ones. Maybe I said that this was just a few months. It seems like it was a year. I said 5 years for this one. Is 4 years, 3 months. But like, yeah. So these numbers are the real deal. Basically, I worked my way up. Like, this was my education, right? I just took a job, any job that I could get, where I could just do any kind of programming. That was the first thing I did for the first year. And then I made sure that I learned as much as I could about programming in that time, because I wanted to not just do web development. I knew I wanted to do something more than that. So when I got a chance to apply for this other job, then of course I took it, and it worked out pretty well. So here I got to work with a lot of Linuxy stuff. This here was more of I mean, it was not really like OS bound. We were just making web pages with PHP and putting them on some server somewhere that we rented. But here I got to write like custom operating systems for. I mean, I wouldn't call them operating systems, actually. Like, I wrote this here in the resume, but like, that's not what I would call it today. They were more like very simple programs that ran on a dedicated chip. But at the time, I guess I thought it sounded cool to say that I wrote an operating system. At least I'm doing one now. But yeah, so like I was saying, this here was my education, and this entry here, this is actually something that the last year of this job, the IT guy at that company quit, and then the company asked me and my coworker Alex, they asked us if we could just take over his job, basically, like the IT guy who quit, and they wouldn't pay us anymore, but we would have more to do, so that was cool. And for some reason we accepted that. Uh, in retrospect, I'm not sure why, but I guess at the time it was exciting that they trusted us with more responsibility. But that was a really dumb thing to say yes to. And like it says here, like, oh yeah, and this was supposed to be temporary. but it ended up burning me out because they didn't hire another guy until the very end, when I made it like sort of when it was clear that I was not going to stay. That's when they got someone else. Um, so that was kind of bullshit, actually. But I could have just said no. I should have just said no to that. Anyways, so this was my base experience working experience when I applied for the job at Nokia. But then, of course, I made sure to always mention this because this was extremely relevant for the job at Nokia, that I was working on KDE in my spare time. And I worked on the core libraries, primarily KHTML. This was like me fluffing up or not fluffing up, but like sort of highlighting the thing that seemed relevant for the job I was applying for, right? And I did do performance work all over KDE, I did have this bug hunting spree, which I don't know why I'm mentioning specifically here, but there was a time when they used to do like a weekly digest of KDE commits and bug tracker action. And this guy, is his name Daniel, I think, he would put out this little compilation every weekend. And I just love that kind of stuff where there's like a metric and it has my name on it, and if I do something, the number next to my name can go up. So I just went to town on that thing, and it was like trying to always close the most bugs in KDE every week and like just fix everything. So I was running all over the project, hopefully not making too much of a mess. Oh yeah, and then so of course, like I had to mention this, right? Because this was like, I didn't have an education, as we say here, completely self-taught, dropped out of high school, never looked back. I think this was like this part here, I added this because I wanted to emphasize that like I'm owning it. You know, I remember thinking that was important back then. I didn't want to sound insecure about it, which I guess I was, but it doesn't matter now. And here I listed my key skill areas the way I thought of them. I don't know if I would say that these are my key skill areas still today. 2D graphics, that's definitely kind of a fabrication. That was never a key skill area of mine. I don't know why I said that. I mean, I guess because I had been working a bit on Canvas implementation in the WebKit engine at the time here, so this was like something that I was very fresh on. So I felt like it was a key skill, but it really wasn't. It still isn't. But you don't have to tell the complete truth on your resume, you know? Anyway, yeah, and then I just put my outside interests here, which were taking up approximately 1% of my time at most, because I thought that you were supposed to put these on your resume, but I don't think anyone gives a shit, honestly. So I think really the important thing, like now that I have screened resumes myself and I have interviewed many people, I know that this part here is the interesting part, because I don't care what you think that your skill areas are, really. Like I care about what you've been doing, especially what you've been doing voluntarily, not because you were being paid, but here, like, this is very interesting to me. Like, you were doing this out of your passion? Tell me more, right? So I think this is very important for anyone who's trying to get a job and you don't have a degree. You really should get into open source development. Like, there's absolutely no reason to not do it. It will teach you. You will become so much better at programming. You will get like super relevant experience that just goes right on your resume, provided that it's like in a non-bullshit project, obviously. But like, if you work on there are countless projects where you can do meaningful work and develop yourself right now and easily get started. So it's invaluable. If you have no credentials, then like this is definitely the place to go. I mean, not KDE specifically necessarily. Like, just pick the thing that works for you, right? But absolutely, you have to. You don't have to do that, but I would definitely recommend that you do it. because it will make up for your degree, I promise you. If you do enough of it and you do it well. Anyways, so with this resume here, I guess I got an interview at Nokia, and then, you know, the resume is just to get you the interview, and then, you know, you just, they might like put the resume on the table at some point and verify that you're not, that you didn't just make the whole thing up, but basically, I just needed this to get in the door, and then I had to do well in the interview. But there was one more component to this, actually, because on their website back then, when I was applying for the job at Nokia, I remember that they asked for a sample of code, and I remember I wanted to impress the people that I was applying to, so I spent like a whole weekend making this thing, and I dug it out here just for you. Let me just see that it builds from scratch. It's written in Qt 4, and it's called the Cling Inspector. And I even included like a little README file here. So made it in 2009 by me. Cool, huh? And yeah, so it's the thing is a little class that you include into your Qt project. And what it does is, actually, I can show you what it looks like when you use it. So here's the code that uses it. You do your regular Qt app setup, and then you create a Cling Inspector, and then you can add objects to the Cling Inspector, and then those objects will become visible through a web interface, which I will show you now. Wait, no, where the hell is that thing? 1, 2, 3. Here. So this is the thing that I made. And basically it allows you to browse the object hierarchy of a running application. So we can go into the Qt application object here and see all of the different properties, the different slots and signals and stuff. And I remember I even had, so this is the window icon, and you can click on this and it will, I mean, this is just the window icon of the Qt application. It's a PNG that's streamed or whatever from the app through this web server thingy that I made. And yeah, so you can also browse the object tree here. You can see like the child objects and whatever, and it had links to the, you could click here to get the documentation for this class that you're looking at. It's just really kind of a cool application introspection thing, and there wasn't anything like this. Oh, I guess the documentation server is not there anymore, but there wasn't really anything like this in Qt, so I remember thinking that if I make this nice, they'll probably be a little bit impressed. And look, I even made it like green, like Trolltech used to have this shade of green in all our materials. Yeah, so this was the thing that I made and sent them. And yeah, so they invited me for an interview based on this resume and this sample app. And then once you have the interview, it doesn't matter what was on your resume anymore. Like at that point, you just gotta show them what they want to. You gotta show them what they want to see on the whiteboard if they do that kind of thing, and you have to be like someone that they like. You know, you gotta have that thing that no one can define. They like you. They gotta like you. You know, but that's not something that you can put in a resume, and I don't know how to teach you that. So that's for you to figure out. But get in the door and then do well on the interview. That's the trick. But then let's just look at also the part where I got the job at Apple. So basically I spent, when I applied, it was 1 year and 4 months, but I ended up spending almost 2 years, almost entirely 2 years there. And when I made the application to Apple because someone from the iOS team reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to apply for a job there, basically. Like, he wanted me to apply for a job on his team. I never really learned why he contacted me, but it doesn't matter. So, of course, in my resume here, I made sure to highlight that I'm working on the Qt port of WebKit, because that was very important at the time. And of course, remember that WebKit is also open source. So WebKit is a fantastic project, just like Blink and stuff like that. If you want to get into one of these big companies, like go and work on one of their open source projects, and you will immediately gain the, I mean, you will not immediately gain the trust and social proof, but like if you do well in one of those projects, then of course they're going to be interested in you, right? Like they get 1,000 resumes a day, and they get one from someone who's already producing good code for one of their projects. Of course, they're going to like yank you out of that pile. And yeah, and I highlighted here that I was an official WebKit reviewer because I was proud of that at the time, I remember. And I guess I'm still happy that I became a reviewer. And I was indeed highly active at the time, producing lots and lots of code and reviewing lots and lots of code. And here was, yeah, so this is the thing that I mentioned before, that I wanted to like say something that I had done for WebKit that was like benefiting WebKit as a whole, not just the Qt port, because WebKit at the time had many, many ports, which were like these platform adaptations of the engine. And if I come there and I say like, well, I have 2 years or like 1 year, 4 months WebKit experience, but I've only really worked on this platform adaptation, then I felt like that's not as interesting to the person reading my resume as perhaps that I did something for the the larger project, right? So this was the main thing that I could think to mention here. And this is actually something I picked up because I didn't just want to work on the platform adaptation for the Qt port, but I wanted to be part of the bigger project. So what this actually was that there was this guy named Philip Taylor, and he had made this gigantic test suite for the Canvas element in the web browser. And he had all these different tests, and this is like just a list of them. And I guess we can, yeah, so he has this thing here where you can see the results in different browsers. Hopefully it will load. But basically, you could run these hundreds of tests and, well, it's not working out. Oh, we can't go back either. Anyways, you could run all of these different tests, and it would find like failures where your engine was not complying with what was in the HTML5 spec of the Canvas element at the time. So it was like this tiny little details that you had to get right in order to pass all of his tests. Like oh, if you pass a negative number to this particular argument of this particular painting function here, then we should throw this particular exception. And in this other scenario, we should not throw an exception. And like there were just all these different little things that we were not doing exactly to spec. So I just went through his test like one by one, just fixing everything up and making it work right, and then adding the code to WebKit. And I spent so much time on that, but I remember it felt so meaningful to me at the time. In retrospect, I can see that like maybe it wasn't the most important thing in the world, but it did make me feel like I was part of the bigger project, and it made me more confident in working on the engine, and going like outside of the Qt area of it. And anyways, this resume here was certainly good enough for getting in the door. And like I said, that's the thing that matters. And then actually, during the interviews, one person who was interviewing me, who ended up being like my manager's manager in the end, he mentioned that he was also a dropout. And then I remember feeling immediately at ease, like, oh, see, I knew I shouldn't have cared about that, even though I was sitting there like probably caring about it a little bit. But that really put me at ease. But other than that, no one ever mentioned anything about the lack of education or anything. They were just interested to see if I was friendly and if I could program, and that was it, basically. Now, I'm not going to teach you how to how to do well in programming interviews. Like I said, that's something that you have to figure out on your own. But this is literally how I got in the door at these companies with no degree. And I was able to get those jobs and stay there for many, many years until I finally decided that I don't feel at home there anymore, but that's an entirely different thing. I just thought that you guys might find this interesting, so that's that. Thank you for visiting, and if you made it this far, then cool. I guess I'll see you next time.